Yo, good afternoon, fellow Gulag members. Good afternoon, everybody who's come to visit. I appreciate you stopping by. I just had to get a little something off my chest. Yeah, I had to get a little something off my chest. Uh, Yo, what's up, SKC? F Holiday, good to see you. Deacon Dave, Sigma Jones, the Emperor, Winthrop. Yo, glad to see you. Glad to see you. So hold on, let me get set up here. Well, I'm already set up. Got to get my chat window open. So how's everybody doing? How was everybody's Christmas? Right? Any family traditions you like to share? Things you got to participate in and do with thy family? Personally, I had a great time, man. Had a great time. Had a bunch of people over, and it was good. And a lot of well wishes, and just a lot of love. It was great, man. I mean, Christmas was great. So, hopefully, everybody got some of that too, right? You got to have a good Christmas. Pretty good debates with the family sisterhood about Trump. Good to go. Good to go. Actually, I had a conversation with a guest at Christmas, but it was like a few days before Christmas, right? She came over and we started talking. She's like, "Oh, I used to vote Republican until Trump." And then we had a conversation, yada, yada. But it was good. Not contentious by any means, but very fun time. Very fun time. So yeah, everything is good. Family is good. Christmas was awesome. But what we're here to talk about, right, is some of that happened, and it was what started it was the affirmative action and the canceling of affirmative action. And basically, here's my take, right? Here's how I see it, right? Someone was talking about the lawsuit, right, against yeah, buddy. I actually did the same. Got an optic cut on my Beretta from Langdon Tactical. It was dope. So this whole controversy, or really controversy for Black people, which is the lawsuit that Asians brought against basically the Ivy League, right? So this guy made a comment, right? The initial lawsuit was, quote, "Get these niggas out of here" lawsuit. And my response was, no, it wasn't. The Ivy's actual argument in court was that if they don't discriminate, then Asians would take the spots from Blacks, right? And that is the signal, right? That is the program signal to sick 'em, boy, right? And what did Negroes do? They jumped on that grenade, right? They did exactly what they were programmed to do, which was to protect the institution from Asian competition like a good boy. Now, I say that not for no reason, because Blacks, as a percentage of the Ivy League, well, Black people aren't challenging Asians in Ivy League attendance. They're not. It's just it's ridiculous. And here, let me show this again. Where'd you go? Let me show this again. Let me share this. So these are your average SAT math and test scores by ethnicity. Asians are not competing with black people. Can we stop this? They're not. Oh, I'm not going to mention any names, SKC. And that's a good promise. So, look, they would have you believe that Asians are really, really, really concerned about black people. Right? This is like a paranoia / narcissism, as if that's even a requirement. The only people that are going to displace Asians will be competing with white people. That's it. That is it. They would only be displacing white. I mean, and the original lawsuit, right, is, hey, Asians are actually being disadvantaged in the process and have to get better test scores and better metrics to even have a lower acceptance rate. That's it. So here come the Ivies, right, saying, no. If we didn't do this, we'd have no blacks. And then black people are jumping on the grenade as if that isn't a direct insult. They don't even see that as an insult. It's just, look at what the Asians trying to do. Man, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So I made that point, but the person's response is not on paper, but ideologically. The actual lawsuit doesn't matter, right? This person has determined their ideology with their omniscient powers, right? The lawsuit didn't say that, but that was the ultimate goal. All right. They don't have to say it like this to be true. They see themselves as white compared to us. They share the same hatred whites have for blacks. Oh boy, there goes that hatred. And hatred is going to come in here later. Save that note. Tuck that away. All right. So this person mentioned the prison pipeline, the school to prison pipeline. And if you've been on my channel, then you have seen this video. Let me pull this video up. Now let me just play it again because some people haven't seen it. So for those that haven't, let me add this to the stream. You skip ahead.
Oh, Freeman, you muted. That's why we can't hear you.
Oh, someone's.
Let me go ahead. I'm curious what you got going on here. Oh, Freeman, you muted. That's why we can't hear you.
Oh, someone said something about black women in education.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to show you the Detroit Public School Board. I mean, if there's some sort of through line we had about education, there was just something we could see.
Damn shame.
Maybe the Atlanta Board of Education. If there was anything that we could see in the Philly Board of Education.
I'm not getting the point, Friedman.
I don't know either. If there was just some sort of throughput.
Was that George Clinton?
Memphis, Shelby County schools. I mean, gosh, if there was only a through line we could
What
look at.
what is this proving?
I'm just lost.
What is this?
Well,
what is this proving?
we're slow over here, FD. We like pictures because we can't read.
Yeah,
I mean,
count,
like y'all
I
saying
count with
that
my
to make
fingers.
jokes, but
I count with my fingers. So I'm looking at school boards and wondering if there's any hint about.
Oh, I think I see Friedman. I see people that look like They look like us, so they have our best interests at heart.
Okay, for the nosebleed seats in the back, explain for everybody, those that are a little slow. Freedman Journal, explain.
have you ever heard the phrase?
Explain. Hold on, wait, real quick. I want him to explain in full adult paragraphs what point that he's making for those who may not know. Go ahead, Freedman Journal.
If there's anybody conducting the school to prison pipeline, it is Black women. They are the conductors. Choo choo. From beginning to end. I mean, if we start listing principals, you want to start listing principals and assistant principals and start looking at those pictures?
Yeah,
because it only gets worse.
Yeah, Freedom Journal. I worked in education.
You can take that, pardon me, I'm speaking. You can take that Black women helping Black boys nonsense somewhere else. And that's really all I came up here to show, because now you got to see it in real time.
But Freedman, I don't understand. They look like I
don't know. I don't understand either. I mean, Black boys should be winning, especially in Detroit. I mean, good God. Who's turning the grind? They are turning the wheel.
All right, FD, we'll get your response to that, and then we'll
All right, so you get the point, right? I mean, most here, let me show this. Let me all right, most actually, you know what? Let me say this, right? Ips Dixit. Actually, no. Actually, let me go here first. So most Black people live in cities, right? So this person's next assertion was, after I said Black women are conducting the school to prison pipeline, this person's next assertion was Black women aren't a quarter of the teachers nationwide, but they run the school to prison pipeline across the country. Dude, you need to stop the conservative brainwashing. Damn, I can't believe what I'm hearing. All right, so you got to use a counterfactual. So I said Black women don't have to be a specific percentage of teachers nationwide. Black people are coagulated into specific areas, major cities, right? You think the birthplace of Black men in jail is somehow evenly distributed across the country, right? The vast majority of Black boys are in school systems run by Black people, right? So I said, you just say things without data or a fact pattern, which is demonstrably true. So let's let me take a look at this. Let's take a look. I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't. Let's just see. So here we go. Now, this is a list of U.S. metropolitan areas with large African-American population, right? By the 2020 census. Black people are coagulated in major cities: New York, Atlanta, Chicago, DC, Philadelphia. I mean, it just is what it is. And Black people are running the asylum. Matter of fact, New York, last time I looked, New York had a Black woman as the head of all public schools, right? So even if she isn't now, she was recently. Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta cheating scandal. If you're not familiar, just look this up. Atlanta public schools cheating scandal. All right, this is when a Black woman took over. Oh, did they crush this? They crushed this article. This used to be a lot longer. Oh well. Atlanta cheating scandal. So basically what happened is Black woman as a superintendent, right, started changing test scores, basically, and literally cheating the black kids out of an education, right? It's not even my opinion. That is exactly what happened, right? And then what happened? The NAACP marched out there and called prosecuting this racist. You know, none of the guys that believe in systemic racism were in the streets complaining about this, and they'll never mention it either. Never. So that was my response, to which there was no direct response to what I said, because of the fact pattern that, you know, has no counter really, because it's the truth. Now here comes the response to that was, so according to you, oh, actually, the majority of was, oh, and then I had another statement about it's well known. It was just deflection, right? It's well known black people have been moving to the suburbs for a long time. Why? To get a better education for their children, right? And so his response was, so according to you, white women aren't able to negatively impact black boys' academic life in the suburbs. Now, that is what you call a red herring and a straw man, because I didn't even say that. What I said was, black people have been moving to the suburbs to get a better education. Now, does it make sense that if white women were some sort of evil force, that their test scores would be worse? It's as if systemic racism somehow magically allows black people who move to the suburbs to have better test scores by magic, even though they're closer to the supposed conductors of systemic racism, who are white people. How does that work? See, and here's where we come. Ips Dixit. One of my favorite ones, right? An assertion made but not proved. Right? Just saying things when you have no proof. Now, how? Now, why don't I believe in quote unquote systemic racism? Well, I'm going to keep that under my hat, SKC, right? But online. So, I mean, I don't have video of it, so I'm not gonna share that. But I'm quoting directly from the conversation. So, as far as I can tell, the definition for systemic racism is any bad thing that happens to black people, and then they can pin that on the white man, right? Something along those lines, because there's no real hard definition. They'll say, well, look at this thing over here, incarceration rate. That must be white supremacy, right? Okay, is it? Because who's conducting the school to prison pipeline? Matter of fact, where is... Here it is. Okay. So let's say that's true. Let's look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's profile. Now, this is Prison Policy Initiative, right? They collect a lot of data on prison population, so forth and so on. But here's incarceration rates, right? Wisconsin, right, on national average. But let's see. Racial disparities in Wisconsin prison and jail incarceration rates. Black. Yeesh. 2,250. Right? Jail rates. Now, here's the kicker. Comparing Wisconsin's resident and incarcerated population. Right? Residents for blacks, 6%. Prison population, 41%. That's almost a 7 times multiplier. Now, mouth breathers will tell you there's your systemic racism. Well, where do all these people come from? Huh? Where do they come from? It's just they appear in prison through the ether. Because here's Wisconsin. And the two biggest cities in Wisconsin are Milwaukee and Racine. Milwaukee and Racine. And these are the two biggest population centers, right? They're not reaching that percentage of prison population by arresting people in Madison, right? Or Fond du Lac or Oshkosh or Green Bay. There aren't even black people up there, right? Most black people are in Milwaukee and Racine. So let's see, Common Council. Okay, let's see. So these are the city council members. There's your city council. I mean, if the prison population is that high, it's running through these people's jurisdiction. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 members. 11 members are black? I mean, this is where all of your prisoners are coming from. Nobody here is part of this school to prison pipeline. So let's see. Milwaukee Public Schools. School board members. Oh, the president. Oh, gosh. Oh, Daryl Jackson. Dr. James oh, Lord, Dr. James Ferguson. I'm getting a big check. Systemic racism is cutting me a big check. Right? So you've got representation on the school board. Matter of fact, the president of the school board is dear old Marva Herndon. All right. So the city that has to be statistically sending the most people to prison is Milwaukee. Right? And is this not enough? Is this not enough political representation? Is this not enough educational representation to thwart the systemic racism? And now they'll tell you that oh my, it is black women are the hand of white supremacy. They are the hand of white supremacy. They are. That's what they're doing, right? So they can have the same example, right? And nothing ever changes, right? There's no nuance. It's always the same explanation, all right? But there is the D.L. Hughley Brigade, and we all know this exists, right? Who are we kidding? Who are we kidding? Black men want mama in charge. They do. Black men want mama in charge. Black men support this. So if you're going to say black women are the hand of white supremacy, you got to find, and black men aren't, you're going to have to find me a jurisdiction in which the black men vote athwart of black women. And I don't think you can do that. I mean, maybe you could in this last election. And it's interesting that the places in which you would do that would be the most right-leaning. How does that work? How does that work? Now, and notice the true believers never notice that this happens in left-leaning states. So let's compare. So this is Wisconsin. Let's compare another state. Let's go to a big old red state. Big old red, lock 'em up, Texas. All right, Texas, look at the incarceration rate. It's insane. So, resident population, it's about 3-1. It's about 3-1. Shouldn't it be higher in Texas? Texas is super racist, right? Republican controlled deep red state. Shouldn't the ratio be higher? I mean, shouldn't it be like 50%, 60%? Or could it be that, white people just commit a lot of crime in Texas too? I don't know. But that ratio is generally about 2-1 to 3-1 that I've noticed in red states, and much higher in blue states. And it really doesn't matter the amount of representation. Let's look at, where's another one? Oh, Minnesota. So here's Minnesota. Low incarceration rate, right? Is there a corollary there? Don't know. So 7% of the residents are black, but 35% are the prison population. So that's a 5-to-1 ratio. 5-to-1? Huh. That's weird. Huh. Maybe I'm confounded. Confounded. Let's see Georgia. Georgia is about 2-to-1. And 30% are 30% of the state is black, right? 31%, but the 59% is the prison population. Huh. The ratios seem off for these weird blue states. Let me see if I can find something else. Maybe there's some weird corollaries out there. Maybe some nuance is needed instead of the snapping of the fingers and going, which apparently means you white people hate black people. Let's see, where are you at? Here you are. And apparently this triggered some people too. Let's see, come on. Yes. So this is cold. This is cold. So the systemic racism narrative for education is, right, how did different groups do in the NAEP in 2022, right? That's a national test, right? So mean scores for reading and mathematics subtests. The yellow are Asians, right? Let me give you a picture of the whole thing. Yellow are Asians. Blue is white. The magenta is Hispanic, and the green is black. Like all the way at the bottom. And something I noticed when I took a look at this is, look at the scores for white DC. Like liberals make sure their kids get an education. I see that liberals like getting their kids an education, right? They're ranked third. And DC is just a city. And another thing I notice is the DOD scores are always higher, right? DOD scores are like an outlier. If you look at this line here, right? The DOD, that's the white DOD score. You notice how it's an outlier, right? This line here, this magenta purple line for Hispanics is the DOD scores. Why are the military scores so much higher? Like they're way down here, man. The DOD scores for Hispanics is way up here, which is nuts. Even for black people, here's the DOD score. Way up here. Right? I mean, that's better than that's the median, man. That's that's above the median. Right? And that's gotta be above average. Right? Just because they're in the DOD. So what can we learn? Let's see. I'm going to come back to that. What can we learn about the DOD line? First, I want to look at this. So black scores in Massachusetts. Whoops. Those are the highest. Well, sorry. No, DOD is the highest. Second, blacks in Massachusetts. Third, blacks in Vermont. No, nothing there. Nothing really to see there. Vermont, Massachusetts, I expected. Texas. Wait a minute. I thought Texas would be the land of systemic racism. Those rootin' tootin', red leaning states ought to be producing. Gosh, that's weird. Okay, well, maybe it's a fluke. Let's see. The next score. Georgia. How can Georgia be the next one? Systemic racism certainly wouldn't let Georgia educate black kids better than California. I mean, come on. And then, Florida, oh God. Colorado, I expected. New Jersey a surprise. And then Virginia, oh no, that's not a southern state. That can't be. Virginia and New York are the same. Washington? Liberal, Seattle, Washington is doing, no. Well, that's odd. That is odd. So let me go over this real quick. So what is the outlier in the military? 2.5 million black men are in the upper class. So this is just upper class is defined as the top income third. So what is fueling their success? What is it? Black men in the upper class, what are they doing? So in a multivariate analysis that includes a range of factors, education, work, and marriage are highly predictive of black men's economic success. Moreover, the number of early life experiences are associated with black men's elevated odds of being financially successful. Black men who served in the military, or attended church regularly as young adults are more likely to have made it to the upper class by 50. Hey, what kind of households are going to church as young adults? Are those nuclear families or baby mama households? The impact of military experience on black men's success seems to work through its links with black men's work and marital status. That is, black men who served in the military early in life are more likely to be working full time and to be married later in life. Oh, God. Now, here's the kicker. Having a sense of personal agency is also linked to black men's success. Black men who believed at a young age that they were mostly responsible for their lives rather than outside forces measured by a locus of control scale are more likely to flourish later in life. What? No, that can't be. That can't be. Locus of control? Mostly responsible for your own life? You can't tell people that. That would By God, that would undercut systemic racism. So, now locus of control scale, all right, at ages 14 through 22. Stronger internal, 25%. Stronger external, 17%. So you're actually in the smallest group, right? I'm assuming that the numbers missing that would need to add up to 100 are in the middle, right? So stronger external, you're actually the outlier at 17%. So the suburban radical who's actually successful that whines about systemic racism is actually the minority. But you know what? They probably are still married, right? Or remarried, or divorced, widowed, or separated. They probably go to church, right? And they probably had military service. Probably. Not all, but probably. You know. So of course, you have to compare them to other groups to have a negative story, right? But that's what's always done. Yes, Jarrell, I can. All right, there's a study. Okay, next. Let me see. Go look at my outline. So systemic racism as white people hate black people is bullshit. There, I said it. Right? And this is coming from someone who, listen, I'm going to read this and I almost don't believe it. So there was a social media post, right, that said, I am a teacher. Arm me. Arm me with funding for a full-time school psychologist. Arm me with funding and mandatory school counselors. Arm me by funding smaller class sizes so I can best get to know every one of my 160 students and their families. Arm us with what we need. All right. And this was during political context of arming teachers, right? School shooting, arming teachers. This person posted this and their response was, arming school teachers who are for the most part racist, middle-class white women will only do one thing: get black boys from school to prison pipeline to cold blood execution in class. I cannot. Do you think you can reason with that kind of psychopathy? I don't think you can. I don't think that can be reasoned with, honestly. They think arming teachers would all of a sudden, racist white women will start shooting black kids in class. This is a real comment, by the way. Something else to set this person off. I mentioned that, this is at another time, the conundrum of 99% of black people's problems being the lack of nuclear families, yet 99% of the energy and attention is on things that do not matter at all, never ceases to confound me. So this person threw a fit, right? And in this dialogue back and forth after this comment, another comment was, ask that question. I said, what is holding you back exactly? Ask that question to the millions of black men sent unjustly to prison for decades. Bro, look, the prison population is only 1.8 million. You understand? It's only 1.8 million. If it's millions of black men unjustly sent to prison, then everyone's innocent, basically. See, and this is the type of hyperbole you need to paint a narrative versus nuance and facts. All right. They want the key disposition, right, or problem to be white people hate black people. Literally, that's how else can you spin it, right? But you ready for some more dark truths? Yeah. Ready for some more dark truths? So yeah, so let's read this. I've showed this before, but the quote unquote school to prison pipeline starts in the crib. So let's read the abstract. Let's read this. Mothers' academic gender stereotypes and education-related beliefs about sons and daughters in African-American families. The role of African-American mothers' academic gender stereotype endorsement in shaping achievement-related expectations for and perceptions of their own children was examined. Mothers of 7th and 8th graders completed measures of expectations for their children's future educational attainment, perceptions of their children's academic competence, and academic gender stereotypes. Consistent with hypothesis, mothers held less favorable expectations for their sons and perceived sons to be less academically competent than daughters. In addition, mothers reported stereotypes favoring girls over boys in academic domains. Stereotype endorsement, in turn, was related to mothers' educational expectations for and beliefs about the academic competence of their own children, even with youth actual achievement controlled. Negative stereotypes about the academic abilities of African American boys may create a negative feedback loop, thereby contributing to the maintenance of gender gap in African Americans' educational outcomes. What? Uh-oh. See, the school to prison pipeline begins in the crib. So let me scroll down. So beliefs favoring girls. %67% of sample. Right? 67%. And there's something about that 70 number. Right? Black Girl Magic. You can find Black Girl Magic programs all over the country. Are there any Black Boy Magic programs? There are not. But good God, gotta watch out for those white women who are gonna shoot black boys in class. Cold blood. Weirdo. Now, let's get a little darker. Exploring the racial divide in education and the labor market through evidence from interracial families. We examine gaps between minorities and whites in education and labor market outcomes, controlling for many covariates, including maternal race. Identification comes from different reported races within the family. Estimates show that two distinct patterns. First, there are no significant differences in outcomes between black and white males with white mothers. Second, large differences persist between these groups and black males with black mothers. The patterns are insensitive to alternate measures of own race and school fixed effects. Our results suggest that discrimination is not occurring on the basis of child skin color, but through mother-child channels such as dialect or parenting practices. School to prison pipeline, you say? Uh-oh. So let's see. Black mother stats, education stats, went over that. Atlanta grading scandal. School boards full of black women. Black men help promote black women. Yep. And this. Oh, God. So this happened, right? Kids for Cash scandal. The Kids for Cash scandal centered on judicial kickbacks to two judges in the Luzerne County Common Pleas Court in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, U.S. In 2008, judges Michael Conahan and Mark Ciavelli were convicted of accepting money in return for imposing harsh adjudications on juveniles to increase the occupancy rate in a private prison in PA child care. Ooh. Now, Terrible, right? It is. Now, when you bring up um, reading scores, right? And your answer is the Kids for Cash scandal that occurred in 2009 on the other side of the country, I think that your explanation is a bit suspect. Oh, darn it. I think your explanation is a bit suspect. Just saying. You know, maybe kids in Baltimore schools can't read because of systemic racism. Is that why? I'm not sure that's why, but hey. Let me see. Oh, here you go. This is who's running Baltimore. I like this little story in the beginning.
Rural North Carolina, where my grandparents ran a pig farm until they died, right? Which is wild.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Yeah, there's your boy. Show. There we go. All right.
I don't eat pork because I used to feed them myself. But when you come from things like that, you have a different setting. I was set in a world where, like, you don't have to accept things as they are. You can work harder. You can be.
What? You can work harder? No, you can't. I mean, the black mayor of Baltimore was brought up that he could change his circumstances, that he had an internal locus of control. No.
Be greater, and you have a responsibility to us and those who.
A responsibility to us? To your older relatives, to the people that came before you? No.
Who put you in this position to take us all and your community in a further place. But I also had the community itself. Growing up running track as an athlete and playing sports, ironically, it was also the people that were deciding who lived or died or what the beef was in the neighborhood who said, like, you have to be better than us. We want you to be better. Do not.
No way. Oh, God, no. So do you think maybe that systemic racism that keeps black kids from reading in Baltimore might have something to do with Baltimore?
Let us hear about you getting into any trouble or things like that. And if even some of my family members who work for them were putting me in danger, they would check them, right? It was just a different time. So I would say I had the entirety of the city that really pushed me to make sure that I became a better version of myself and working to be the best version.
Now, what can a mayor actually really do, right? We look at, the reason I ask is, people to say the vice.
Now, have you heard him say that? I haven't heard him say that actually to the city of Baltimore. I've heard him scapegoat racism a bunch, but I haven't heard him actually say you can change your circumstances. Haven't heard that.
President is the vice president, but what can she do? The president can do certain things, but she has to get things signed off on. So what can a mayor actually do?
Yeah.
Do you control funding? Do you control?
I do. So as the mayor of Baltimore,
it's funny. My bad, yo, go ahead.
So I do. And I think what people have to understand is the mayor is an executive of a city. Essentially, every mayor, especially if they're a strong mayor form of government like Baltimore is, actually Baltimore is the strongest form of mayor of government in the country. So technically, I'm the strongest mayor in the country. We do get to direct that funding, right? And it's about, and no disrespect, I love my vice president to death. I love my president to death. But the president would tell you that mayors have the toughest job in America because people can see us and touch us every day, and decisions that we make every day are going to impact people, and they're going to hold you accountable, even for stuff that you're not responsible for. But when you think about the basic things that people need, essentially, I'm the CEO of a $3 billion, $4 billion entity known as the city of Baltimore, right? Everything that people do, when they turn that water on in the morning and they want it to be hot and clean, it's my responsibility. When they want their trash picked up, it's my responsibility. When they want their rec center open up, it's my responsibility. When they call 911 and have to have a fire truck come, it's my responsibility.
Whose responsibility? His. Strongest mayor in the country. Kids can't read. Must be systemic racism. Gotta be. So I went over. I mean, if your explanation is systemic racism for all things, and you have no alternate explanations for anything, no nuance, then I mean, what are you talking about? Honestly, what are you talking about? All right, so let me move on to my next point. Here we go. So we're gonna look at Memphis again. I love looking at Memphis. It's so educational, you know? It really is. It really is. So the other point is, you know, we talk about, actually, no, we don't talk about. Some people talk about a we, right? There is no we. All right. Black people are thoroughly integrated and there is no we. Right? When people say black people need to unite, I don't think so. I think they need to separate. Right? Because this map looks this way for a reason. All right. So why does that map look like that? So, all right. So this is where most black people live, right? And then some up here, and then fewer still here, right? These are not quote unquote one people, all right? Cities in America in general have concentrate wealth, except for black people. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit. But the people that live here, right, majority black population, are not the same people that live here. They're just not. Right? These are different people. Heck, even the white people that live here are different people. Right? White people that live in South Memphis. Good night. So, you know, this neighborhood has lots of expensive homes. These aren't the same people, right? And you know what the people that believe in systemic racism, you know what I've never heard them simply say? Hey, what is the difference between these people up here and these people down here? How do you get that to coalesce? How do you make sense of that? Right? Why don't these people just do what these people are doing? That would be simple, right? But then, oh boy, you're not going to have the right villain. You're just not going to have the right villain. And shout out to Doc Thunder, who states, well, you know, I support, you know, helping people, you know, get over the same hurdles you got. Bro, I went to community college. I made a lot of mistakes of my own doing. You know, there were times I had to work at what is that place called? Labor Ready, right? It opens at 5 in the morning and you sit there and wait to get picked up, right? It's like the Home Depot parking lot, but for citizens, because you can't hang out in the parking lot. So yeah, get there at 4:30 in the morning, right? So when they open the doors at 4:55, you're first in line. Been there, done that. You know what? I just started doing more of what people do here, right, than what people do here. That's it. There was no great systemic racism hurdle. I went to community college. So, yeah, there's the Black community. I mean, dude, just understand the significance of living of wealthy Blacks living all the way over here, right? They were like, we're not going to live over here. We're not going to live over here. We're going to use a blocking scheme called white folks to live all the way over here away from you Negroes, right? Wait, where are you at? Hey, salute Pablo. Salute. Yeah, so there is no we. They're like, oh, it's we. And so another comment was like, hey, I think Black people need to unite. No, you don't. You don't need to unite. Like, what if you come from this environment and you've made it to this environment? What do you have in common down here? What do you have in common? Bro, you got to go to community college. Like, people down here have to look at Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Compromise and start there. Literally start over. Go get a trade and go to community college, which you can afford working at McDonald's. Anywhere in the country, you can have an entry-level job and afford to go to community college, period. Period. And you get a trade, and then you just show up to work. Like, literally, you just show up to work. Man, I wish I had that video of God, that young man. He called himself a lame because he had a full Black guy. He called himself a lame or a square because he had a full-time job and was being successful at working his full-time job. Had a 9-to-5. He's like, I don't know, man. Never thought I'd be a sucker like this. Something like that. Dang, I wish I had that video. Like, literally, the culture programs you to fail, right? But white supremacy and systemic racism is keeping you from, keeping Black people from succeeding. And you know where they put the community colleges? In this neighborhood. Hold on. Let me get. They put the community colleges in that neighborhood. Yeah. Systemic racism is so clever. They cleverly located community colleges in Black areas. That's how devious systemic racism is. Yep. They put easily affordable path to a better economic future squarely in Black neighborhoods. Right? Tricky. They're probably trying to trick Black people into not going. That's what happened. And notice there isn't one out here in Eads, right? Where all these big expensive homes are. There isn't one. Oh gosh. What is that? What's going on here? That's odd. That is odd. So there is no we. And let me just explain this real quick. I have more visual aids. You know how I am. So this are the two poles within Black culture: Black rednecks and educated Northern culture. It's where you have your single parent homes, right? It's your stepdaddy pipeline. People with lots of excuses. They're unaccomplished. They live off racial allegiances, right? Dependent, envious, matriarchal. They're in Plato's cave of different sorts. the inferiority complex, reckless breeding, and sloth. And it's built on a foundation of Marxism. The constant oppressed and oppressor, the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. And all they did was archetype this into white versus black. And the solution, in my opinion, right? Not really a solution, but it's trade-offs, is to divorce oneself from this culture, stop making excuses for this culture, and to get away from it. That educated Northern culture needs to move to the right, further away, to create a vacuum that others can get sucked into. Right? What do you do here? You move away physically, geographically, culturally, and spiritually. So it's either you're going to defend this petri dish that produces black dysfunction, or you're not. That is my theory. You're either going to choose to live like black people in Eads, Tennessee, or you're going to choose to live like South Memphis. So, no, there we go. So it's the system. Hey, Cam, how you doing? Sub seeking my creator. And shout out to everybody in the chat. You know what I mean? Shout out. If I didn't see you, I didn't get you. All right, shout out to you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, post on your social media, whatever you want to do. So what does the actual system look like, right? So I have this theory. Jordan Peterson often talks about the competence hierarchy, right? So let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Dang, I didn't get that video. So the competence hierarchy, he adapted that from what he initially stated was the dominance hierarchy, right? Let me see. Oh, that's 11 minutes. Is there a short?
What's the hierarchy? It's a tyrannical patriarchy.
Let me see if this is it. This might be it.
It's a tyrannical patriarchy. It's like, no, it's not. It's partly corrupt, like every system, but it's less corrupt than most systems. And there's a lot of elements of it that are devoted towards self-improvement and self-monitoring. You have to be a little nuanced and subtle about these sorts of things. And you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the leftist rhetoric has got so intense that the idea is, and people believe this, well, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything is getting worse in all possible ways. And there's systemic racism everywhere. And it's utterly unfair and it should be torn down and rebuilt. It's like, no. It's actually functioning unbelievably well, even though it still has its problems. You know, and there's a big difference between saying there's systemic racism everywhere, and the reason that there isn't perfectly equal outcomes is because of prejudice, and saying, no, look, the system is functioning, let's say it's 75%. It's doing all right. It's got some problem. What's the hierarchy? It's a tyrannical patriarchy.
Okay. So the competence hierarchy versus the incompetence hierarchy. So why does Memphis look like this with this many poor blacks coagulated in here and not a corresponding number of poor whites, right? Because to get to poor whites, you got to go like out here, right? You got to go out here into the hinterlands, right? There are poor, we all know there are, right? But they just don't live in cities. Why not? Because the incompetence hierarchy thrives off of black dysfunction. Thrives. It needs it. It requires it. You know how many people are employed to give these people free stuff? You know how many people are employed to maintain schools that are substandard? So darn it. So let me show you the incompetence hierarchy really started in the 60s and 70s. Oh, shoot. Uh-oh.
Some time ago, I met with a...
Here we go. Oh, no, that's not it. It's a better video. Sorry. Give me a second. Starting to spaz on me. Okay, here it is.
What the welfare system and other kinds of governmental programs are doing is paying people to fail. Insofar as they fail, they receive the money. Insofar as they succeed, even to a moderate extent, the money is taken away. This is even extended into the school systems, where they will give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away, so that you are subsidizing people to fail in their own private lives and become more dependent upon the handouts.
We have expectations built.
This is the incompetence hierarchy. Right there. Francis Cloward Piven and all these architects of the industrial welfare state, right? That is the system. If you want to see systemic racism, it looks like this. And it's got a handout with cash in it.
Built in today about the quality of life, the quality of job, the level of income for which one expects in return of life, the quality.
Hey, just read that real quick. Just read that real quick. State of Pennsylvania Secretary of Welfare. It is her job to make sure that that blacks were on welfare. Why do you have such a high percentage of blacks on welfare? Well, A, because they took it, and two, it was very profitable for everybody else. And really, what you're seeing with DEI is in the 90s, right? In the late 80s and throughout the 90s, people like Helen Bohan O'Banion were basically replaced, right? That is when black people in numbers started taking over these cities. And now you have black mayors and black administrators of the exact same programs with not the exact same results, even worse results. The results have gone down since black people took control. But this is the hand. This is the hand that feeds you.
Quality of job, the level of income for which one expects in return. Why? Because we look at the level around us that it takes us to have a fairly decent level.
No, that's not why. I may have all sorts of expectations.
And side note, they could listen to this man 50 years ago and saved everybody a whole bunch of problems, right? A whole bunch of problems.
The question is, what can I do? If someone else is subsidizing my expectations will be far higher. Insofar as the Center for Advanced Study was subsidizing my expectations a few years ago, I refused to work at UCLA for the normal full professor's salary. Why should I when I can get the same money for being at the Center for Advanced Study with no hours, no duties, and no classes?
Cut off welfare tomorrow. What will they do? What will be their immediate response? At what price to their small children and to their middle-aged children?
You hear that? What will they do if they're not eating from my hand? What will they do? I don't know. Get married? Stop having babies out of wedlock? What might they do if Big Daddy government wasn't there paying them to be poor? What might they do?
And we spent $22 trillion during that period on programs to aid the poor, where 70 cents of every dollar went not to the poor, but those who serve the poor.
What percentage of it?
70%.
70% of the 22 trillion went to the people that serve the poor.
They ask which problems are fundable, not which problems are solvable. So in other words,
yep. Yeah.
Yes.
These are your benefactors. See, and the reason why all the believers in systemic racism aren't touting this or actually even acknowledging it is because I think it is because then you have to acknowledge that there is a hand extended to receive, right? This is mutual, right? This is a mutual arrangement, not an exclusive one, not one of oppression, but one of symbiosis.
Still get a job. In fact, the statistics show that women, in fact, are the most successful through the employment program. But what has to supplement that typically is the provision of some kind of daycare arrangement. Either the individual woman has to earn enough money to be able to pay privately for her daycare, or in fact, she is, quote, subsidized through this insidious corrupt.
Why does she have to pay for daycare at all? Oh, she's not married.
Corrupting set of programs run by the federal government, which in fact makes her employable and a taxpayer. It's an interesting notion of trying to get people in a productive mode.
Tom Sowell. It's incredible the way you start the story in the middle, as if there's a predestined amount of poverty, a predestined amount of unemployment, and that the welfare system is not itself in any way responsible for that.
There is a predestined 20% of the bottom half of the population.
I have never, that's always been true.
There's going to be 20% at the bottom.
Agree with you. It's also true that 20% of the bottom population doesn't have to be living on the government and ruled by the government. You mentioned, for example, a female-headed household. Many of those, in addition to the grown woman who has all the kids, are teenage pregnancies. There's not a predestined amount of teenage pregnancy. I grew up in an era when people, and particularly blacks, were a lot poorer than today.
Hey, doesn't he sound a lot like the mayor of Baltimore? Yeah.
Faced a lot more discrimination than today, and in which the teenage pregnancy rate was a lot lower than today. I don't believe there is a predestined amount of teenage pregnancy, a predestined amount of husband desertion. Gutman has done a study of the black family, showing that this whole notion that the black family has always been disintegrating, that is nonsense. That his studies go up to 1925. The great bulk of black families were intact, two-parent families up through 1925, and going all the way back through the era of slavery. So it is now only within our own time that we suddenly see this inevitable tragedy, which the welfare system says it's going to rush in to solve.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. You mean the stats were better before? How'd that happen? How did that happen? Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on real quick, guys. Be right back. Oh, whew. All right. Hope I was muted. All right. So where did I leave off?
Now, only within our own time that we suddenly see this inevitable tragedy, which the welfare system says it's going to rush in to solve, but which it is itself a part.
We're talking about a very small group. We're talking about 12% of the families are not intact, are not.
12%. And they were able to increase that to, what is it now? 46% of black children are in a two-parent home. So they were able to raise that to 56% of black children in single-parent home of some sort. She succeeded. She succeeded.
Two-parent families at any one
You
period
mean,
of time.
I mean among welfare recipients?
No,
or the
among
population
the
at large?
public at large. We're talking about 12% of the families. 12%.
That's right.
That's a small number. But
Well,
there's
none of
still
those on welfare.
We're still talking about a significant component of the bottom 20% that are the bottom 20%.
So you get it, right? You get it. Yep. Dancing the deal with the devil, right? But who's the real devil? Yeah, who is the real devil? Systemic racism, it certainly isn't how it's painted. So I've got another one here. Now, here's how they're paying poor people to stay poor. It was written in 2012, by the way. Julia's mother. Why a single mom is better off with a $29,000 job and welfare than taking a $69,000 job. So how do you create generational poverty? This is how you do it. But guess what? There's a handout receiving this. All right. So the U.S. welfare system sure creates some crazy disincentives to working your way up the ladder. Oh, and by the way, the welfare to work program under Clinton that he was forced to sign because Republicans passed it actually worked. All you had to do was interview for a job to keep your welfare benefits, and doggone it if more people didn't get hired. So the U.S. welfare system creates some crazy disincentives to working your way up the ladder. Benefits stacked upon benefits can mean it is financially better, at least in the short term, to stay at lower paying jobs rather than taking a higher paying job and losing those benefits. This is called the welfare cliff. Let's take the example of a single mom with 2 kids, 1 and 4. She has a $29,000 a year job, putting the kids in daycare during the day while she works. As the above chart via Gary Alexander, Pennsylvania Secretary of Public Welfare. Still, Gary Alexander, Pennsylvania's Secretary of Public Welfare in 2012, because black poverty is big business. Shows that single mom is better off earning gross income of $29,000 with $57,327 in net income and benefits to earn gross income of $69,000 with net income and benefits of $57,045. It sure would be tempting for that mom to keep the status quo rather than take a new job, even though the new position might lead to further career investment and a higher standard of living. I guess this is something the Obama White House forgot to mention in its Life of Julia cartoons extolling government assistance. And the entire point is women don't even make $57,000, right? They have a huge incentive to continue to remain poor because it's comfortable. You know, that's why I, as a landlord, you see women with kids 10 plus years apart, right? They're maximizing that kid before they become infertile. You know, you see they got a 4-year-old and a 16-year-old, no joke. And that's how they stay on welfare so long, right? Then they got to have another plan, right? And hopefully they'll provide for them, but they have no dad, so who knows how successful they'll be. It's a hell of a spiral. And this works for whites, by the way. Like Charles Murray, who wrote The Bell Curve. Oh, the super racist bell curve. IQ. Oh, no. Oh, no. He wrote a book called Losing Ground, which he exclusively focused on whites, and it works the exact same way, right? It works the exact same way, excepting there is a symbiosis here, right? Your race hustlers and your poor and your systemic racist liberal all have an interest in keeping this together. There is another class of colored people who make the business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. No, and know what astounds me about this is that there are people that do it for free. For the free. And they believe, true believers in the grievances, true believers. So, and here it is. And you know, let me show you actual.
It's on their website.
Let me show you actual. Just a minute.
So the ruling was last October, I think.
Okay. Interesting. The politically motivated lawsuit brought by Edward Blum and the organization he created, Students for the Fair Admissions, wants to remove the consideration of race in college and university admissions. What's at stake? the ability of colleges and universities across the country to create the diverse communities essential to their educational missions and the success of their students. So the problem was that so many of these Asian kids were doing so well that they had a disproportionate number of Asian students, and they wanted to balance it out better.
They want more blacks and Latinos specifically. They usually say it, at least in New York City, they actually say it, that it's blacks and Latinos. They say it over and over and over again. That Asians and whites and Jews are filling all the spots, and blacks and Latinos aren't. So what you're actually looking at is they're trying to
sick 'em, boy. That's what that is. Sick 'em, boy. Those Asians are taking your spot.
move to a space where they can put racial quotas in.
That's so crazy.
And it hurts people, right? So if you take like with Harvard's hard. It's a hard school. So if you take somebody who's academically not prepared for Harvard and you stick them in Harvard, they're going to underperform.
Right.
And then if you would have stuck them in a school that they actually are, it matches their capabilities, then they're going to excel. That's how it works. You can't, like if we went out into the gym and we put some weights on there, right? And you're like, all right, Jim, you're going to bench 400 pounds. I'm like, no, I'm not. But it's like, you wanted to coach me. You would say, all right, we found out you can do like 190 or whatever. So we're going to push yourself. We're going to try 195. Within that little bit of a range, you can cause somebody to excel. And then within however many months or years, I'm benching 300-400 pounds. You can't just put people in hard mode and then watch them succeed. And then again, I get these emails from people. They're telling me their story. I get this one from this black guy who said that he never had any of his work corrected. And how does he know in his master's program? How does he know? How does he know?
In his master's program?
Yeah, so he started deliberate.
Listen to this one more time.
He never had any of his work corrected. And how does he know in his master's program? How does he know? How does he know?
In his master's program?
Yeah, so he started deliberately putting mistakes in to see if they'd correct it. And they wouldn't. They didn't correct it. Like he was putting mistakes in on purpose, right? So he's getting A's on all these papers that he was writing that were just junk. And now he can't get a job because his skills never developed to the point where they're actually competitive. Papers that he was writing that were just...
There's your systemic racism. Uh-oh. But my narrative, it's because white people hate black people and they're keeping them down.
Junk. And now he can't get a job because his skills never developed to the point where they're actually competitive. So it's like trying to help people by the wrong means hurts them.
Well, they don't care about the end result, right? They don't care about you getting a job. They really just care about you graduating and it looking good on their...
It's like I said, it's like putting wallpaper over a hole in the wall and considering it fixed. It's like, oh, we're just going to...
Now, here's the, what I want to say, the kicker, like the downstream effects, right? You put people in Harvard that don't belong in Harvard and you prevent them from excelling at Duke. You take black people that don't belong at Duke and you prevent them from excelling at, University of Central Michigan, right? You take people that don't belong at University of Central Michigan and who shouldn't go to Central Michigan, and they go to community college where they can excel. If you matched their ability with the institution, there would instantaneously be more success. And that's what happened in California. Because when California got rid of affirmative action, black enrollment went down. But you know what went up? The graduation rate. Because people were then matched to the level that they were at. And that's the big secret of getting rid of affirmative action in California. Now, see, that only lasted for a couple of years, right? Because they reinstated affirmative action by other means, basically. But for that brief period, all of the other metrics, all of the other downstream metrics, like percent of black kids that finish in 4 years, percent of black kids that actually graduate, GPA, everything else increased because he only let in black kids that were could meet the standard. So where's the systemic racism? Putting black kids who aren't ready for UCLA into UCLA? Because that's what's happening. Now, went over before how, oh darn, I closed that. Memphis. Why does Memphis or why do cities in general have concentrated Black poverty? Right? Why can you go to, no, let me pick another city. Right? Why can't you go to Cincinnati, right, and find concentrated Black poverty? Right? There's this thing called the National Affordable Housing Act of 1990. And subsequent acts that at the state level that have created the same incentive. Right? This is your incompetence hierarchy. Right? The national, what this does in the real estate market is that it has housing for poor people, specifically aimed at Black people. And there is a whole infrastructure of people that make this happen. Subsidized apartments, your Section 8 office for the county. They are all employed to basically concentrate poverty and market it to Black people. That's why you have this across the country. This is not like an accident, right? You generally cannot concentrate white poverty in an urban area, right? Because the subsidies aren't aimed at them, right? Now, there are plenty of small towns, right? Where is this town? Where's Middleton? Yeah, Middleton. Yeah, Middleton is like full of drugs and drug addicts, but it's mostly white. But it's out here. It's not in the cities, right? They are in the cities specifically so those people can get paid to keep them there. That is your systemic racism, right? But then again, you can't admit the symbiosis. It's the racism and hatred that keeps you there, not the symbiosis. So, you know, it's this noble savage theory, right? That something is being done to Black people that has to be undone, right? There is no symbiotic relationship between the quote unquote oppressed and oppressor. Nah, can't be that. You know, and it's so funny that, you know, all these they talk about white supremacy and all this stupid stuff. It's hilarious that they index off of white people. White people are getting passed by everybody else. Like, you know, it's hard to relate, you know, because my wife was out and about and she met a child that was extremely articulate, same age as my daughter, more articulate than my daughter. And my wife came home and said, yo, I got to start reading her more books. We got to up it. Instead of 2 to 3 a day, we're going to take it to 4 to 5 a day. That's what we're going to do. But, you know, those are habits of a nuclear family. And, you know, that's just white supremacy. Hell, that's why they can sell it. That's why liberals can literally tell you that a nuclear family is white supremacy. Idiots. And, you know, and the real crux, you know, the real path to success gave you the game a long time ago. Everybody has asked the question, what shall we do with the Negro? I have had but one answer from the beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us. If the apples will not remain on the tree of their own strength, if they are worm-eaten at the core, if they are early ripe and disposed to fall, let them fall. For I am not for trying or fastening them to the tree in any way, except by nature's plan. And if they will not stay there, let them fall. And if the Negro cannot stand on his own legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own legs. Let him alone. trying to oppress you, but you won't let me. Yeah, exactly. Now people say, well, that's not what's happening. They doing something to us. This is written by a former slave in Reconstruction, fool. What are you talking about? I mean, god dang. Now it's like, okay, so that's the other thing. How to overcome it. Actually, I skipped ahead and did that. How to overcome it. You got to start over. You got to start over with, got to start over with Booker T. Washington's plan. That's it. I mean, that's all you really got, you know, to be honest. What else can you do? I mean, they do. Black people got to start over. Okay, here we go. So let me read this real quick. And here's what a lot of these true believers in systemic racism won't like this. But that's okay. Because Booker T. Washington has been right. Period. That's why that's my avatar. Mr. President and gentlemen of the board of directors and citizens, 1/3 of the population of the South is of the Negro race. No enterprise seeking the material, civil, or moral welfare of this section can disregard this element of our population and reach the highest success. But convey to you, Mr. President and directors, the sentiment of the masses of my race when I say that I in no way have the value, and manhood of the American Negro been more fittingly and generously recognized than by the managers of this magnificent exposition at every stage of its progress. It is a recognition that will do more than cement the friendship of the two races than any occurrence since the dawn of our freedom. And side note, this was like the left of their era. People run the exposition were the lefties of the era, which I mean would be so far to the right of current politics, it'd be ridiculous. Not only this, but the opportunity here afforded will awaken among us a new era of industrial progress. Ignorant and inexperienced, it is not strange that in the first years of our new life, we began at the top instead of at the bottom. That a seat in Congress or the state legislature was more sought than real estate or industrial skill. That the political convention or stump speaking had more attraction starting at a dairy farm or truck garden. And that also refers to right after emancipation, there were a lot of black people elected because there were a lot of majority black regions of voting, right? So when you ask when were black representatives elected, a lot were, well, there were more across other states, obviously, but Reconstruction, very much so in the South, which, you know, that's when you start at the top. So a ship lost at sea for many days suddenly sighted a friendly vessel. From most of the unfortunate vessel was seen a signal, water, water, we die of thirst. The answer from the friendly vessel at once came back, cast down your bucket where you are. A second time the signal, water, water, send us water, ran up from the distressed vessel and was answered, cast down your bucket where you are. And a third and fourth signal for water was answered, cast down your bucket where you are. The captain of the distressed vessel at last heeding the injunction cast down his bucket, and it came up full of fresh sparkling water from the mouth of the Amazon River. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land, or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with the southern white man who is their next door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends of every manly way of people of all races by whom we are surrounded. Uh-oh. That can't be right. I mean, that can't be. I don't know. Now, side note, growing up in San Diego, California, which was only 5% black, if you weren't doing something stereotypically black, you had to do it around people that weren't black. Basically, shooting pool, didn't do it around black people. Table tennis, right? Got real good at ping pong and want to get a better game. Guess what? I had to go to Balboa Park and it was mostly Asians. So did they teach me how to get better? Yep. So cast down your bucket where you are was a way of life. So cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, and commerce, and domestic service, and in the professions. And in this connection, it is well to bear in mind whatever other sins the South may be called to bear when it comes to business. Pure and simple, it is in the South that the Negro is given a man's chance in the commercial world. And in nothing in this exposition more eloquent than in emphasizing this chance, our greatest danger is that the great leap from slavery to freedom, we may overlook the fact that the masses of us are to live by the productions of our hands, and fail to keep in mind that we shall prosper in proportion as we learn to dignify and glorify common labor and put brains and skill into the common occupations of life, shall prosper in proportion as we learn to draw the line between the superficial and the substantial. Draw the line between the superficial and the substantial. Yeah. The ornamental gewgaws of life and the useful. No race can prosper till it learns that there is as much dignity in tilling the field as in writing a poem. And it's odd how the writers of poems were the leaders of, black grievances. Those who did not work with their hands. It is at the bottom of life we must begin and not at the top, nor should we permit our grievances to overshadow our opportunities. To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongues and habits for the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I will repeat what I say to my own race. Cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down among the 8 millions of Negroes whose habits you know, whose fidelity and love you have tested in days when to have proved treacherous meant the ruin of your firesides. Cast down your bucket among these people who have, without strikes and labor wars, tilled your fields, cleared your forests, builded your railroads and cities, and brought forth treasures from the bowels of the earth, and help make possible this magnificent representation of the progress of the South. Casting down your bucket among my people, helping and encouraging them as you are doing on these grounds, and to the education of head, hand, and heart, you will find that they will buy your surplus land, make blossom the waste places in your field, and run your factories. While doing this, you can be sure in the future, as in past, that you and your families will be surrounded by the most patient, faithful, law-abiding, and unresentful people the world has seen. Now, who does that sound like? Sounds like Vivek. Sounds like Vivek's people. Is what it sounds like. But can't say that. As we have proved our loyalty to you in the past in nursing your children, watching the sick bed of your mothers and fathers, and often following them with dimmed eyes to their graves, so in the future, in our humble way, we shall stand with you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives, if need be, in defense of yours, interlacing our industrial, commercial, civil, religious life with yours in a way that shall make the interests of both races one. In all things that is purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress. And do you know who has executed this plan? Latinos. Yep. Go check the percentage of the armed forces. The armed forces are heavily Latino. Heavily. Uh-oh, don't say that. Don't say that. You're going to give somebody Asian PTSD. Yep. Exactly. Since the 1965 Immigration Act, Latinos have executed the Atlanta Compromise in real time. So depending how old you are, you've either seen it or you haven't. And depending on what part of the country, actually, you can see it all over. If you're from Atlanta, you can see it. Right? You can see it. There is no defense or security for any of us except in the highest intelligence and development of all. If anywhere there are efforts tending to curtail the fullest growth of the Negro, let these efforts be turned into stimulating, encouraging, and making him the most useful and intelligent citizen. Efforts or means so invested will pay 1,000% interest. These efforts will be twice blessed. blessing him that gives and him that takes. There is no escape through law of man or God from the inevitable. The laws of changeless justice bind oppressor with oppressed. As close as sin and suffering joined, we march in fate abreast. Nearly 16 millions of hands will aid you in pulling the load upward, or they will pull against you the load downward. We shall constitute 1/3 and more of the ignorance and crime of the South, or 1/3 of its intelligence and progress. We shall contribute 1/3 to the business and industrial prosperity of the South, or we shall prove a veritable body of death, stagnating, depressing, and retarding every effort to advance the body politic. What? Which way did the black community choose post-civil rights? Gentlemen of the exposition, as we present to you our humble effort at an exhibition of our progress, you must not expect overmuch. Starting 30 years ago with ownership here and there in a few quilts and pumpkins and chickens gathered from miscellaneous sources, remember that the path that has led from these to the inventions and production of agricultural implements, buggies, steam engines, newspapers, books, statuary, carving, paintings, the management of drugstores and banks has not been trodden without contact with thorns and thistles. While we take pride in what we exhibit as a result of our independent efforts, we do not for a moment forget that our part in this exhibition would fall far short of your expectations, but for the constant help that has come to our educational life, not only from the southern states, but especially from northern philanthropists who have made their gifts a constant stream of blessing and encouragement. The wisest among my race understand that the agitation questions of social equality is the extremest folly, and that progress in the enjoyment of all the privileges that will come to us by the result of severe and constant struggle rather than of artificial forcing. What happened when Du Bois got his way? What happened with forced integration? And that the progress in the enjoyment of all privileges that will come to us must be a result of severe and constant struggle rather than of artificial forcing. No race that has anything to contribute to the markets of the world is long in any degree ostracized. It is important and right that all privileges of the law be ours. Oh, I thought Booker T was just cooning. It is important and right that all privileges of the law be ours, but it's vastly more important that we prepared for the exercise of these privileges. The opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. Let me read that one more time. It is important and right that all privileges of the law be ours, but it is vastly more important that we be prepared for the exercise of these privileges. The opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. Consumerism would be the death of you, i.e. In conclusion, may I repeat that nothing in 30 years has given us more hope and encouragement and drawn us near to you of the white race as the opportunity offered by the exposition. And here, bending as it were over the altar that represents the results of the struggles of your race and mine, both particularly empty-handed 3 decades ago. 3 decades ago, I pledged that in your effort to work out the great and intricate problem which God had laid at the doors of the South, you shall have at all times the patient, sympathetic help of my race. Let this be constantly in mind, that while from representations in these buildings of the product of field, of forest, of mine, of factory, letters, and art, much good will come, yet far above and beyond material benefits, will be that the higher good that, let us pray God, will come in a blotting of sectional differences and racial animosities and suspicions, in a determination to administer absolute justice, in a willing obedience among all classes to the mandates of the law. In a willing obedience among all classes to the mandates of the law. This, coupled with our material prosperity, will bring into our beloved South a new heaven and a new earth. So this was 30 years after Reconstruction, or sorry, after the end of the Civil War, during Reconstruction. And basically his comment at the end is basically we was all poor, right? The South was destroyed and we was all poor. So did this means there wasn't racial strife? Does this mean there weren't labor riots? No. But under this system, Black people still achieved. I want to read this other quote. Come on. Ah, here it is. Frederick Douglass. As I have often said before, we should not measure the Negro from the heights which the white race has attained, but from the depths from which he has come. You will not find Burke, Grattan, Curran, and O'Connell among the oppressed and famished poor of the famine-stricken districts of Ireland. Such men come of comfortable antecedents and sound parents. Right? And how far did the Negro come by the 1950s? You know, we've said this a million times, but it bears repeating. Pull this up.
Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro. The secret of selling to the Negro is...
So for those who haven't seen this, this is basically an advertisement for what it says, how to sell to the Negro. But there would be no need for this if the Negro had no money, right? Black middle class was growing, blowing up across major metropolitan areas all over America. And this was happening not at the end of, but it was hard fought for. There were labor riots all over the country, the ones you've never heard. I can pull up newspaper clippings from, Virginia, Pittsburgh, Ohio, right? Black people fought for this, and they got it. And what had them undone was that symbiotic loserdom of the entire.
is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated.
And the one thing I will say is, here comes the consumerism.
This need is a very real and important.
And even this represents kind of the beginning of the end. It's like, little did we know.
It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important.
Right, so you get it, right? Black people had money. That's why they made this. And this was made by a black guy, by the way. All right, so, yeah. So how do you, quote unquote, overcome, right? Get a trade. Do what Booker T. Washington told you to do. Sitting here crying about systemic racism when black neighborhoods are full of community colleges and places for you to go to get a trade. Here, I'm gonna somebody pick a city. Somebody pick a city. Any city. Just put any city in the chat. Let's see here. Phoenix. Okay. Let's go to Phoenix. Phoenix, AZ. Actually, I was in Phoenix. So I kind of already know this. So this is one of the community colleges in Phoenix. And actually, I almost took a class here. Fancy that. Lived in Scottsdale for a while. Degrees and certifications, degrees and certificates. Progress my name, fields of interest. Accounting. You want to get an accounting certificate? Right? Can complete it in 2 semesters or less. Accounting. Done. Right? Amazon Web Services Cloud Practitioner. Done. Actually, this should probably be updated because Cloud Practitioner, they don't have that class anymore. So this class probably teaches you how to have the associate certification. Let's see, where is search welding? Welding fundamentals during the day. Welding, gas, tungsten, arc welding. Welding, shielded metal arc welding. Not only that, there are whole channels on YouTube that'll show you how to get welding. Right? For all this talk of systemic this and systemic that, now these dudes are promoting this. Cisco certified. Oh, wow. Okay, this is professional. A lot of places don't have the professional. A lot of places have the CCNA. Right? A lot of places have the CCNA, but not many places have the professional. You can actually take this. Wow, that's crazy. This is good because usually you can't. And they break it down how much you can make. Dude, where's the price? Do they have the prices? I'm sure it's under tuition or something. Clock hour programs, $97 per credit hour. Upper division costs $145 per credit hour. So if you're taking a how many credits was that? Total credits required 16. So yeah, about $1,600. Wow. If you're a Maricopa County resident, about $1,600 to become a professional, Cisco professional. I mean, this is dirt cheap. Dirt cheap for a career, for beginning your career, right? And this is computer network specialist is 62 grand. And that is like, I mean, you know, that's just starting. Right? I mean, you can get up to, it's less valuable now, but you can still get up near 6 figures if you just have a little bit of experience in a CCNA. Right? So all this talk of, oh, it's systemic, they systemically put these in black neighborhoods and are charging next to nothing for you to earn a trade. So how about you start listening to Booker T? How about that? I mean, Newark. Let's go to Newark. Newark. Oh, let's go to Newark. So Essex Community College. All right. Is there any particular reason, F holiday you picked Newark? So continuing education, which is a kind of a key word. A lot of colleges will call it continuing education. So pre-college relevant licenses and certifications. This is like, These programs. Offered. So the same thing. So radiography is another good one. Political science, avoid. Manufacturing engineering tech. And know what is another good thing about another good thing about community colleges, they adapt themselves to the area, right? So manufacturing process and metallurgy, metals, whatever that is. So manufacturing engineering tech. So basically how to do how to work in manufacturing, right? Lathe machines, machines that make guns or anything else you use to like whittle metal down into specific shapes, and you can make different parts. This could qualify you to build aircraft parts, things of that nature. So a lot of, not a lot of, but most will adapt their curriculum to what is in the area, right? So community colleges in South Carolina offer courses that are geared around the aviation industry because they wanted to train people who could then work in aviation, not necessarily for Boeing, but for the subsidiary companies that supply. So basically, wherever you live, your community college is going to be made specifically for what is available in your area. As they actually have people in business meet with these people and tell them what they need, right? So, health information technologies, probably data entry, technology. Well, they have a whole, this is more of a beginner IT curriculum. You don't have to see some links. Hey, CT 231 in this course can you perform calculation around specific correct size of physical characteristics, structural components, design, steel, and wood framing, members, bearing plates. Okay. So construction, welding, etc. Anywho, you get the point. Go get a trade. All this talk of systemic this and that. Community colleges are going to sneak up on you, put you in a chokehold, and force you into class. Right? Refuse the deal from the incompetence hierarchy and accept the deal from the competence hierarchy. Right? Someone who has an internal locus of control and thinks that they can determine their own future can come here, right? Go to their community college, get a trade, and keep it pushing. So you can get any trade. The basic trade, they have schools for that everywhere. Plumbing, freaking electrician, their apprentice program, right? Ask Shaka. Ask me. They got some programs for you, and they're always looking. So, there really are, no excuses unless you just want to be oppressed, right? If you need that, then that's fine. Don't sit out here and make excuses. They just want somehow, some way, it's got to be quote unquote systemic racism's fault. And really, for them, all that means is the white man's evil and the white man's evil. It certainly doesn't mean that you have a symbiotic existence with the incompetence hierarchy. It can't mean that, because then people are culpable in their own demise. So anyway, that's all I had. Yeah, this whole, and you know, the people that are out there crowing about, actually, where is that? Did I open that? Hold on, did I open that? People who are out there crowing about oh yeah, here it is. That are crowing about so what did James, what did they tell you about test scores and not being prepared? Right? There's a reason they weren't prepared. Right? Your systemic racism is in not preparing. Your systemic racism is in the soft bigotry of low expectations. Because they aren't actually preparing black kids to pass the bar. They're just socially promoting them all the way through law school. Right? The entrance exams and the test scores, black kids are lower. And what do? Well, the test must be racist. Yeah, the test ain't racist. The racists were in your class who weren't holding you to the same level as everybody else. Oh, where's this? Is this it? Oh, darn it. But, you know, I think I'm going to make that its own show. Because I got some background information on Prop 209 from California. Yeah, I think I'll make that its own show. So, that's it, folks. Thanks for coming. And reject the open hand. Right? Reject the open hand. Because that open hand is a leash. It is a leash physically and most importantly, spiritually. Lest you become the black person crowing about Asians and lawsuits. All right. Later, folks.